that this is the seventh successive conference which is being hosted by the faculties of engineering from three of our reputed universities. Today, this year, the theme appears to be on sustainable built environment. The timing of the choice for this theme couldn't have been better timed than for these calamitous times when we are faced with one natural disaster after the other. This year had been a very challenging year for all Sri Lankans. We have had devastating floods. We have had one of the worst years in which we lost large numbers of our people to landslides in this country. So this unfortunate incidents, which is happening much more frequently than any of those people who would be able to predict about the uncertainties of climate changes, we feel is quite symptomatic of the times in which we are living. So we are not a unique phenomenon alone. A few days ago we saw the devastation caused in the southern Indian city of Chennai by a cyclonic storm which caused havoc. So this is happening all over the world. And China, for instance, have had its own share of natural disasters. So it is very opportune for us to discuss this importance of sustainable built environment in a period in which we are faced with natural calamities of all sorts, challenging us to be more concerned about the sustainability of our development initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, the success of a built environment is measured by the degree of well-being of the humans who inhabit it. The role of human agency is pivotal to what we discuss today. Our built environment influences our choices. Distinctly different from the natural environment, the built environment encompasses our homes, hospitals, schools, universities, offices, markets, and shopping malls and the like. It also makes up our neighborhoods, communities, and cities. The roads, sidewalks, green spaces, and connecting transit systems are all integral to it. The development of the built environment involves many sectors, including urban planning, architecture, engineering, local authorities, and the central government. The built environment is the product of human interference in the natural surroundings to create structures that, with their form and functions, contribute to human well-being. Of course, sometimes the human well-being is either neglected or fails to materialize as planned. It is then that the experts and the people find fault with us politicians. What is implied by the term sustainable development is an important aspect of discussion. I came across a definition of sustainability that is unmatched for its precision. Sustainability is to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to use the same space that we are creating. A process of change in which the exploitation of resources, the direction of investments, the orientation of technological development, and institutional change are all in harmony and enhance both current and future potential to meet human needs and aspirations. But that said, in meeting the demands of modern day life in urban environments, we must also learn to adjust our behavior, values, and attitudes in shaping our individual and collective needs. The built environment is a human endeavor to create an artificial environment for habitation. Today, the concrete and plate glass high-rise structures where we live and work in urban sprawls tell us how separated we are from natural climatic processes. These modern buildings have increased the sense of separation from nature. We should reverse this trend. We must also be mindful of the socio-political factors that impact sustainability of built environments. We have wealthy elites living in first world luxury in city condominiums, and another layer aspiring to reach the top of the pyramid. The base of the pyramid has a sizable segment of the population living on less than $2 a day's earnings. The inequities are mirrored in the built environments. Uncomfortable it may be, but we must remain on firm grounds of reality. Our anxiety to provide shelter to all drive us towards quantity instead of quality, ignoring the most basic sustainability guidelines. A few days ago, I was watching television and there was a program looking at the living conditions in the newly created urban regeneration projects in Colombo. The former regime identified some of the highly populated underserved settlement areas in Colombo and thought of giving them new high-rise flats to live in. So as we find in most of these developed nations, now we find in Colombo, in many parts of Colombo, some of these urban regeneration project high-rise buildings in which the former shanty dwellers are living. What we found to our dismay is that these people were not used to vertical living. The result is, we hear frequent complaints of lift breakdowns. Old people having to climb up and down the long steps. Solid waste management has not been planned for. No shafts to send the solid waste of the shanty. They are not used to this. Their life has become miserable. Substance abuse and drug abuse in these communities is so high. So much so all the staircases have become no-go areas. It has become a law and order challenge. So we are faced with all kinds of unforeseen problems. It's just in one particular development initiative of our government. So now we are thinking of the same, another phase of similar urban regeneration program in the city of Kandy. If you go to Katukale, Deyannavala, Mahayawa, we find the similar environment as we see in any congested city, the underserved settlements. So some of us ministers representing Kandy, 5 of us, have now got together in one team and are looking at the different options we have, and we don't want to repeat the mistakes that was made in Colombo. And we need to also bear in mind Kandy is a heritage city. So we need to preserve its status of heritage and then also look at the different living conditions of those who live in these underserved settlements in devising their own urban regeneration programs. The built environment can also be a cultural product and a product of human labor and imagination. Kandy, the historic city where we meet today, is a classic example of human enterprise and historical compulsions. Nestling in the hills, it is eloquent testimony to a built environment created by a people resisting foreign invaders. Conversely, Sri Lanka also has a heavy concentration of built environments in our coastal areas that developed together with fortress settlements of Portuguese and Dutch colonial enterprises, which the British developed on a more sustainable foundation. The Colombo megapolis development, which we hear these days in abundance, is an inevitable and much overdue concession to demands of the 21st century, arising out of a 15th century accident of history. We have already identified the development of a Colombo-centered metropolis. As being the crucial pivot to reach the status of middle-income economy. The Colombo metropolitan region is home to 28% of our population and accounts for 45% of the gross domestic product of the entire country. The development of urban centers in other provinces has now gathered momentum. Most of these development initiatives are in their early stages. However, you can be assured that the appropriate long-term strategies are well on track, attracting the interest of credible, serious stakeholders. Kandy is undoubtedly Sri Lanka's second largest city, and its own historical and contemporary lead role in the economy of the central province gives it an unenviable position. Jaffna has its own development trajectory and will emerge as a thriving commercial center. Now the government is planning another development strategy for Trincomalee, which is the second largest natural harbour in the world, with its own potential. Access to availability of water were the principal detriments of human settlements. Beginning in the 1930s and more enthusiastically since independence, we pursued this strategy in developing human settlements in the dry zone. It was for the twin objectives of settling landless peasants from the wet zone and reaching self-sufficiency in the production of rice, the staple food for our people. Then we arrived at the stage of multipurpose irrigation and hydroelectric power generation projects and satellite towns reclaimed from pristine forest lands. Pressure on natural resources, mainly through the use of water, land and demands for energy, has complicated our exercise in providing the sustainable built environment for the future generations. Of all these pressures, the most pressing are the demand for water and effective solid waste management. What is required today are human habitats that are more efficient and better livable, that calls for good policy and judicious planning, and that meets the demands of modern mobility, community cohesion, water and solid waste management. A human habitat is livable to the extent that it fits to the complex environmental and human system in which we live. Now, if you look at the place where this hotel is situated, you proceed away from Dalada Maligawa, come towards passing Tennakumbura, then we go on to Balagolla, Digana and beyond. If you were living here and had gone abroad for 1 or 2 years and have come back, you would be amazed at the rapid urbanization of this segment of the outskirts of Kandy. The ribbon development on both sides of the road is such that I myself as the Minister of Water Supply and Drainage face one of the worst challenges in this part of the Kandy. So much so that I have now had to design the Kundasala Haragama water project, which is still on the pipeline, waiting for funding from the Indian Exim Bank, which is going to cost us almost $150 million. But the fact remains that we face problems with the irrigation department telling us now we have to extract the water from the Victoria Reservoir, which is just a few hop, step and a jump away from where we are discussing this matter today. Our engineers reported to me two weeks ago that the irrigation department, after the heavy drought that we faced, have now told us that the intake has to be shifted from where it was originally planned. Now I have to take the intake back to where the Greater Kandy water supply project is situated, back again to Katukastota. We had to change the entire design all over again. So these challenges we face over and over again. Then with the natural disasters that we faced last year, particularly landslides, all areas of the hill country has posed many challenges. You take, for example, one part of Kandy, Hirasagala. If you ask the National Building Research Organization, if you look at the files that are piling up for building permits from NBRO, in just Hirasagala area alone, Hantana Hirasagala area alone, it would amount to thousands. So it's time for us to try and look at the pressure that the civil society is facing today in finding buildable land, and particularly in a heritage city like Kandy. And I face the same problem because I am now again involved in planning one of the most ambitious sewerage projects, and that too in Kandy. Being a heritage city, the sewerage project that is now being implemented poses untold challenges. The Korean contractors are all the time coming and complaining about various delays they are facing. The terrain is so difficult. The plans have gone all haywire. It has to be revised and revised all the time. But still, we're learning from this exercise. We have engaged very good consultants, but yet problems do keep cropping up. So these were a few contemporary challenges which I thought I should share with you. I don't want to take much of your time. I know that I myself have been somewhat delayed, that again due to the traffic congestion. That again is another challenge for the sustainable environment that we are talking about. For Kandy, our plan is to have 3 large bus terminals, one in Gatambe, one here in Pallekele, the other in Katukastota. The 3 entry points to the city of Kandy. And we are yet to identify the Gatambe location. We cannot find proper land. Only land is the Gatambe playground next to the small Mahanama college that is there, which from our school days, again the most downtrodden and poor in the Kandy city are the people who use those playgrounds. And that will be gone one of these days if we can't find another alternate place, and that too is not sufficient. The idea is to stop all buses from coming into the city and to have shuttle service into the city in a planned way, and to have also a tunnel which is going to cost us almost $1 billion or more. under the ancient city of Kandy, bypassing the Kandy lake and to reach this part of the city. So there are, with a small outlet at Ampitiya. Then we are looking at dual tracking the railway line from Kandy to Katukastata and beyond. That again is faced with another problem. We find that we have got some of the temples objecting to the path of the dual tracking. So several such challenges are being faced, but yet the other important project is of course the highway from Colombo to Kandy. Thankfully, I hope that we could see the highway becoming a reality at least before the next elections, if I am to face the elections. So all of us politicians are so anxious that this highway should become a reality. The funding has become a problem. So now we had to parcel it out to 5 different sources or 3 different segments, and certain segments are being broken into another 8-mile segment for different contractors in order to try and deliver it in time. Then my experience, then if you want to make it sustainable, once again, you have to look at what they do in Singapore. We have been talking with Professor yesterday about rainwater harvesting. Some of these advanced economies harvest the water that drains off the highways. Special drains are created, water is collected, recycled and used. So those technologies also is something that we need to try and incorporate in our so-called sustainable built environment. So you cannot see a better sustainable built environment than Professor Upul Disanayake's property, the University of Peradeniya. Our forefathers had the wisdom to create such a pleasant environment for a higher educational institution. And the learned professor from the Chinese Academy of Sciences and her team is thrilled that they are able to situate one of their gifts to Sri Lanka. The laboratory that they have been gifted to us is to be housed in the premises of the Peradeniya University. With those words, I don't want to take much of your time. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be amongst you today and say a few words to inaugurate this wonderful conference on sustainable built environment. Thank you.